Welcome to the video edition of Best Podcast in Baseball. I'm Jeff Gordon here with our beat reporter, Derrick Goold. And Derrick,
Mhm.
Cardinals coming out of the break. They've got some work to do to stay in the playoff chase, but that
Yeah.
trade deadline nears, and there's a lot of speculation and a lot of folks wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the Cardinals haven't exactly offered much clarity, and nor do they really need to until the standings offer some clarity. I think the team is kind of approaching this from a clubhouse point of view as they could play well enough in these next 13 days, 13 games, and they have a favorable schedule to force the issue and get some help at the trade deadline. And the front office is going to allow for that. John Mozeliak has talked about how he hopes it's a difficult 72 hours, but recognizes that a decision on the direction they might go may not come until 72 hours ahead of that July 31st trade deadline. Really, the way this is all kind of headed, Jeff, is it seems like the Cardinals are going to want to try to play it both ways. Pretty similar to last year, non-committal. There are some wild cards in play here, Jeff. There is, of course, the fact that this will be John Mozeliak's last trade deadline. And what does that mean for him and what push he wants to make or what kind of roster he wants to leave for Heim Bloom, who's set to take over likely before the end of the regular season as president of baseball operations, what role he plays, because there will be some conversations with teams who come calling, Jeff, on players who the Cardinals, if you asked them at the beginning of this season, saw as part of their future. And now teams will wonder, is that the case, or can we make a play for some of them? So I think there's a lot of elements here that there's just too little time in the 13 games to decide, but all kind of lead towards the Cardinals maybe, you know, being unable to get out of their own gravitational pull of just playing the middle, not going all in, not going all out, and trying to ride the trade deadline for maybe pieces they see that might help them for not just the remaining months of this season, Jeff, but might contribute next season, a la what they hoped from Eric Fetty.
Yeah, let's take a look at the possibility of a baseball trade then, Derrick. You've
Yeah.
got some redundancy forming, particularly with J.J. Weatherholt likely to be in the majors next year, maybe even before the end of this season. A lot of left-handed bats, some crowding. You've had a lot of success with some of your left-handed hitters, so maybe the exception, Lars Nootbaar. So let's kind of take a look at where they are with those guys, and is that a way to get some pitching?
That is. I mean, you look at, I think you mentioned the left-handed hitters. I think you also have to talk about Jordan Walker in that equation. Where does he fit for the Cardinals in their future, especially as Alec Burleson has taken over a lot of the playing time, and then you have the clock ticking on how much longer Jordan can be on his rehab assignment, working on some swing changes there at Double-A. So if he's going to return to the majors and have limited playing time, or if he's going to come back and be a priority guy, who then means like someone like you mentioned, like Lars Nootbaar has limited playing time because Alec Burleson is a starter for this team. So where does all that fit? I think it's a real interesting point you make about the depth there around the infield. Certainly JJ Weatherholt is on the rise. Some see him as a second baseman, some evaluators see him as maybe a third baseman. The Cardinals see Mason Wynn as their shortstop, so you wonder how that'll all work. And at the same time, Gorman has played pretty well here. In a lot of ways, he's the one who's been dinged most as far as the playing time because of the return of Arenado. But he's done well here and put himself ahead for playing time. So, the Cardinals, and you didn't mention, but it's worth mentioning, the Cardinals want to clear a spot in their rotation for Michael McGreevy, and it's the same kind of thing, right? They want to make a trade from that group, or they're open to making the trade from that group to then, create that spot for Michael McGreevy. At the same time, you look at the relievers, they have 3 expiring contracts out there of significance, right? Steven Matz, Phil Maton, and Ryan Helsley, they'll entertain, and there will be teams interested in both Matz and Maton. There are a handful of teams that are at least poking around on Matz at varying different roles. Could he be helped for a rotation? Could he be a swingman? Could he be a high leverage lefty that a lot of teams look for at the deadline? Helsley, of course, will draw the interest of teams looking for closers or looking for late inning help, such as the Phillies. But the Cardinals have to be wowed with an offer because they're not closing off the idea of offering him a qualifying offer, which would mean that he could come back for 2026, which is something he's expressed an interest in.
Hey, last thing, Derrick. Some fans do want to sell and see what you could get, trying
Hmm.
to fuel the rebuild, would there be much expectation of a big return for guys like Matz and Maton, and even if they go that far, Helley?
Yeah, Helsley for sure. I mean, the track record suggests that Helsley would draw in a high return. Teams with like Fetty, Maton, and Mats, the tendency is that, you would get some depth there, similar to what the Cardinals pulled off, say, slightly a little bit less than what they got for Jordan Montgomery, which is a significant return. I mean, you're talking about Tekoa Roby, you're talking about John King, and you're talking about Thomas Sajasi in that deal. So pretty good deal when you think about it, considering Roby's rise to AAA. John King's been a part of the bullpen ever since that trade. So good return on that deal. So slightly less than that is what you're talking about, because you think about where Jordan Montgomery was at that time. Same spot in his contract, different role and different performance too. So you think about that. It's a really good question. And the way that this could play out is, do the Cardinals make a play from their depth to then add a starter who could help them through the end of this year? But when we talk about what they don't have for 2026, it's that 1, 2, 3 starter to pair with Sonny Gray. That's missing. And that's not coming from internally. And we know that's not coming via free agency. So can that come via trade deadline? And that's going to be a really fascinating question to watch unfold here, given some of the names that are available and given the fact that it's really the last big move of the Mozeliak era.
Well, that's something to keep a watch on here at stltoday.com, where we have all sorts of extra content, our videos, our extra written content, so much going on here down the stretch. So stay locked into the digital edition of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch at stltoday.com. For Derrick, I'm Jeff. Until next time, see you later.